Hello, 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 everybody. This is Aurelia Davis, the educator's educator, coming to you this afternoon and just hoping that everyone is doing well. Here we are on a Thursday. The weeks are going by so fast, so fast. Teachers, before you know it, you'll be going into Halloween and then you'll be going into Thanksgiving. Speaking of Thanksgiving, it's interesting because Chicago Public Schools this year are they're giving the children or the students the whole week off for Thanksgiving, whereas before we would just have that Thursday and Friday, but now they're going to have the whole week off. And I believe this is has been set in place to give our children and our families breaks, now that they have gone back into the buildings full time. So that's a plus. That's a plus. They didn't ever give it to me when I was teaching, but it's a plus. It's a plus. Okay, so if this is your first time seeing me or listening to me, my name is Aurelia Davids, and I am a former Chicago public school teacher with over 31 years of experience. I worked with the elementary school, teaching second and third grade. Third grade, most of the time, I was teaching. And during that time, also, I had the opportunity to work with teachers. I did student teaching, but at the same time, Chicago Public Schools had a mentoring program where there was a real shortage, and they were basically trying to get individuals to go into the field of teaching. And so they recruited actively individuals that would like to go into teaching as a second career. So they developed this 10-week plan and program and mentoring workshops, where we were able to go in and train teachers and train individuals that wanted to be teachers. And then at the same time, because they had a degree, they were still able to take some of the method courses that were being offered through universities in order to know how to teach reading and know how to teach math and so on and so forth. So that is something that I did and enjoyed. And then after retiring, I also had the opportunity to work for Teach for America, where I was working with Dominican University. And I mentored teachers that were going into teaching as with a master's degree. And I had preschool teachers, first grade teachers, so on and so forth. And that worked out real good for me also. Um, what we after now that gotten back into the full gist of teaching, and the school is we're getting ready to go into October, and some schools have been in place, some districts have been in place since August. And so I know you have a real gist as an educator as to who you are teaching and your students that are sitting in front of you, and that's a good thing. That is a real good thing. um, but what I have noticed since I have retired, the acronym SEL, which means social emotional learning. Social emotional learning. And this has become so important that even a curriculum has been developed throughout the United States, where they are in telling teachers and letting teachers know and letting school districts know that this is a curriculum that needs to be taught in the classroom. So I'm assuming that even before the pandemic, educators and district people found that there was a need for social and emotional learning in the classroom because children were coming with so many issues as far as trauma is concerned. And that was before the pandemic. And then it even got worse after the pandemic. Well, I presently am attending and getting my certificate in social emotional learning, and I hope to learn a whole lot that I did not know about the curriculum before this time. So I'm getting a certificate. And it's about 10-week program. And the good thing about it is that it's basically coming through the state of Illinois. It's offered in the state of Illinois, so I can go online and just make up some of the classes that I may have missed because I think they set it up every so many months. But I had my first session on yesterday, which was session 3, and it was just very interesting as to how this social emotional learning is taking place, the curriculum itself. And what I did find out is that this is almost like continuing of character education. I would say back in like the late 90s, some districts felt that we needed to teach character in the classroom as to how children respond to situations, how children respond to issues, how children respond to tragic events in their lives, how children respond to trauma in their lives, violence, so on and so forth. So it was called character education at that time. And it was in place for a while, and then after a while it no longer, they just sort of wiped it out because I feel they felt that it was not really hitting the nail on the head as to what those particular or what our students needed in order to deal with these issues. So what I'm understanding with the social emotional piece is that they are saying that it's something that should be practiced on a regular basis. It's something that should be incorporated in teachers' lesson plans. In other words, when your administrator is looking at your lesson plans, they are going to probably look for a note or a lesson dealing with SEL, social emotional learning. And after attending just one session on yesterday, which was session 3, what I saw is that teachers, this particular curriculum is supposed to set students up to the point where they can contain their emotions while being taught. Let me see if I can break that down. How they can contain their emotions while being taught. So that means that, for an example, if a child had an issue at home or within a certain environment that was very, very emotionally tied to the point where it upset them to a point where they could not function, then there has to be something in place at the school that will get the child's brain intact so that he could learn. So we yesterday we had quite a few, I would say, activities. There was a young lady came on and she took us through some dance routines, exercise routines, muscle stretching, stress routines, where we were practicing how to de-stress. And then even before that, we went through a lesson where one of the instructors taught us how to told us to think about a time when we flipped our lids. Now, you've probably heard of that. Some of you may have not heard it. It's an old phrase. Flipping your lid means that you get so angry that you just go off. You don't know what to do. You don't know what to do. And he was trying to tell us that some of the students nowadays, some of the children that we're educating nowadays have times when they may flip their lids, And he said the only way we could have compassion for a child that is going through that type of trauma or going through that type of uh, those type of issues at the time is to think about the times when that happened to us. Well, you can always go as an adult, you can go back into your memory and think about the things that may have made you so upset that you wanted to scream, holler, kick a can or kick a door. Okay. And they're saying that unfortunately, children at the ages of preschool and 5 and 4 year olds, where we looked at those situations as those children as having tantrums. Back in the day, preschoolers having tantrums or children having tantrums. Now they're having tantrums at the ages of 10 and 9 and 11 and 12. And then let's think about some of the school shootings that have happened in the last couple of months or last couple of years. Those were 18-year-olds most likely having tantrums. They are so angry about something that they are going out and they want to do harm to someone else. So this is all a part of social emotional learning. I think that if I was in the classroom today as an educator and as a teacher, I would probably incorporate some type of social emotional learning activity the first thing in the morning. And I think I have about this maybe a couple of months ago or a couple of weeks ago, how we don't need to take that our students are ready to learn the first thing in the morning. We can't just take it for granted that our children are ready to learn the first thing in the morning. And some of the things that I did bring up is that I would probably approach my students every morning and see exactly where their mindset was. In other words, what they were thinking, how they were feeling, asking them those questions. Did everybody have a good night's sleep? How did you feel about coming to school today? How many of you are in a happy space today? How many of you are in a middle space today? How many are not feeling too good today? And I would take those comments and those results and take it to the point where I would need to help my students get into the space or the mindset of learning. And I could not teach anything if they were not in the right mind space. And I mentioned this on yesterday in my class, that the session that I was in, and the teachers, one of the people that was taking the session with me, she said, so you're basically saying that we need to meet children where they are. I said, right. You have to meet children where they are. You cannot get caught up in the level of where I got to teach, and I have to teach this before this month. I have to teach this before that month. You're not ever going to be able to complete the learning within a period of time. The goals has been set for you to do that, but it hardly ever happens. And it's to the point that if you say, for instance, you're going to teach chapters 10 through 20 in math before the year is over, from September to June. Most likely, you're just going to get 10 through 15. And if the children have the skills of those lessons 10 through 15, and they know those lessons well, and they have those skills in place, that's better than sliding them through 10 through 20. Okay. It's better than just sliding. And then what you do is you go back and tell your administrator, oh yeah, I taught that. I taught this and whatever. And it's interesting because when I was teaching, what I would because I was teaching third grade, I would let the fourth grade teachers, we as a group would meet with the fourth grade teachers at the end of the year and let them know exactly how far we got. We let them know exactly how far we got. And what made it even more important was that we let our administrators know exactly how far we got. Because if a child comes to you if a child does not come to you with the skills needed in order to learn, to get to do third grade, that means you have to go back into the second grade skills and just redo some things in order for the child to learn the third grade skills. So I'm saying that to say this, that even with social emotional learning, being that the mindset of a child and how his brain is working and the things that might be clouding his brain to keep him from learning what you're getting ready to teach is more important for them to become, get to the level of where they are relaxed and how they're relaxed and they can smile and they de-stress. Some children come in the morning stressed out. First thing in the morning, they're stressed out. You as an educator, of course, you say that I'm stressed out, but children can come to you in the morning stressed out. And usually they're coming from a place where there has been stress in their lives or dysfunction in their lives. And you need to meet them exactly where they are. And so social emotional learning is what you practice in your classroom to sort of bring them back. And does it mean it's going to happen immediately? No, it doesn't, because you don't know how deep the stress or how deep the dysfunction is from that child. Something could have been going on in that child's life or for the last 2 or 3 nights where he could not get his sleep. And I told you about that before also, that there has been times when children would come into my classroom and fall asleep. And their little classmates, Miss Davis, so-and-so is asleep. I said, let him sleep. Let him sleep. Let him get whatever rest he needs. And some children have slept as long as 2 and 3 hours. So it makes me wonder if if they were able to sleep the night before, and apparently they were not able to get to sleep the sleep they needed the night before. So that's how I met my students in the morning. I wanted to find out exactly where they are, as you know, as far as their mindsets are concerned. Were they ready to learn? Were they ready to get into their reading books and their math books and things, or did we need to sit back and talk about some things? So within my investigation, I found out that they were saying that SEL was not only an intervention focus, but in other words, they did not want it to be a discipline focus, but they wanted to be an intervention focus. That means that as your children were coming in, and it means it doesn't make a difference what age it is. All of our children at this point in their lives during 2022, 2021, they need SEL. I see how important it is now. Um, so that means that it's more that you're going to teach the skills so that the child has an alternative from being there's an alternative than being angry with the situation that he might be in. So you set up talking groups, you set up focus circles. I would call them different things in my classroom, but where the children can sit down and basically talk to each other and express their feelings. And of course, you would put some rules and things in place. I haven't gotten to that point as far as my sessions with SEL, the SEL certificate yet, but where the children would basically talk together and express, those that would become frustrated. You would let those frustrations come out. Let those frustrations come out. It was interesting because even at our school, there was a time when trauma was such at a height that we even had a room in our building where children can just go, if we call it the scream room. It was a scream room. Children would go into this particular room. Of course, it would be supervised. There would be an adult there, most likely a counselor, a social worker or something. And that child would just pour out everything that was in his little being or his little brain that was upsetting him. And they would scream and they would cry and they would draw and they would become upset, and then they would, laugh and talk and just any and everything. And it got to the point some of our teachers tried to use it, but they wouldn't let us do that. But we're saying now that young people have more, they're not allowed to be young anymore. That's what I'm saying. They're taking on the adult responsibilities. And that's really, that's really doing a lot of harm to them. It's really, it's really setting up mental situations that they cannot handle because they have been exposed to more adult situations, and it's just not good. It's just not good. So that's why social emotional learning is being taken place in the classroom. As I continue with this certificate, what I hope to do is just share some of my thoughts as how I see some of the activities can be possibly brought into your classroom and how you can help children. And what I'm going to say this, and I just hope I just want it to land where it's going to land. I believe that child that's in an urban setting is going to have more trauma and drama than a child that is in a suburban setting. And I'm not saying that children in suburban settings do not have the issues, but I'm saying that that child in an urban setting, the inner city, his trauma and drama is going to look a little bit different than that child that lives in the suburbs. And you have to take those things into considerations too. And I've talked before about how you don't ever want to just assume what kind of environment that child is coming from. You don't want to ever assume that this child is coming from a two-parent household. You don't want to ever assume that this child is not sharing a bed with other children. You don't want to assume that these children don't have a very balanced meal, dinner, and that they sit down. Don't want to assume that they have the internet. You don't want to assume that their apartments are warm and cozy. You don't want to assume any of those things. But at the same time, giving credit to children that are in a suburban setting, you don't want to assume that they're in those types of situations too, because now our children live all over the place. They're in the urban city, they're living in the suburbs, they're living in the inner city, so we don't take anything for granted. And more than anything else, from this whole whole problem of SEL, because I consider it to be a problem. Social emotional learning can be an issue that has to be taught now, whereas before it was not taught. And so this is something we have to deal with. It's basically in our faces before we can teach as educators, before we can even teach. This is in our faces. It's going to be there until we do something about it. The good thing is that I know that some governors, after the pandemic, some states have incorporated funding for curriculums, SEL curriculums, and there is a curriculum out, And the thing about it, what I'm understanding from some of my teacher friends that are still in the system, they say they're basically taking parts of it that they need for that particular classroom, which is good. You take what you need in order for you to meet the needs of those children that are sitting in front of you right then and there. And then next year, it may be something totally different. But you have to meet the children where they are. You owe it to them to meet them where they are. Well, a little bit more on this maybe later, but I have really gotten involved in this, and I'm loving what I'm learning about it, because the more I learn about it, then I can share it with you. And if you would like for us to talk a little bit more, feel free to go over to my website, aureliadavis.com, and click on the Work With Me tab and leave me a message. And I would love to just post something in the comments that you would like for me to get back in touch with you, and I can do that. aureliadavis.com, click on the tab, Work With Me, and let's get started. And teachers, keep teaching. Let's continue to pray for our people and individuals in Florida as they go through the Ian hurricane, which is devastated and shook up. And the unfortunate thing is that those children that were in that particular area, they had started school and now they have to stop school. So that's issues too. Just so many things going on, but we're going to stay positive. We're going to stay positive. Love you all. Take care and keep teaching. Bye-bye.